Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejas Prinavadi Tamastuma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us, may he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Om peace, peace, peace. And good evening. We're reading from the complete works of Swami Ramakrishnananda, and we're reading the lecture entitled Determination of Conscious Tendencies, and he's analyzed how the conscious tendencies of all living things, plants, animals, as well as human beings, manifests in terms of likes and dislikes, and that ultimately man realizes that he needs to turn to a spiritual life in order to get lasting happiness, and he's calling living a good life and getting merits by living a dharmic life punya. So this excellence or merit is called punya in Sanskrit, and so he wants to go to higher spheres of existence where he can enjoy the fruits of these merits that he has gotten. And so we now continue with his next thoughts on this idea. Is this punya to last forever? No. For what has been earned during a limited life must be limited, and as such, it enables the man to stay in heaven only for a limited period of time. If he wants to enjoy heavenly bliss for some more time, he must acquire fresh punya by going down to the world and taking a human birth. This also he does This also he does not find to be quite satisfactory. He wants to be incessantly happy, and not now and then only. He wants to enjoy happiness in an unbroken manner. But this is nothing but a struggle, and this cannot be his ideal. So again, he should struggle in order to recover his lost glory of unbroken bliss and peacefulness, and try to realize the highest ideal, where no more struggle is necessary, and where he can say, I have realized the infinite one, and nothing else there is for me to know. I have escaped the hand of death once and for all. Eternal bliss and peace are mine. So the Vedas no longer satisfy him, and he finds out the right path for himself. In the Vedanta, in the Vedas, the object of his happiness is somewhere outside him, and he will have to struggle hard in order to get it. But he learns from the higher scriptures, the Vedanta, that the object of his happiness is nowhere outside but inside himself. It is a fact that there are certain things in the world outside which bring out the inner happiness. Happiness is never outside the man, it is inside him. So, of course, what he's referring to here is the large bulk of the Vedas is dedicated to rites and rituals and hymns of praise and prayers and various sacrifices and so forth. And much of that is geared towards having a good life, having good progeny, having a nice home, having a nice spouse, having nice children, having a good job, having successful careers and so forth and so on. And so what he's saying is that to pursue happiness in that way is a good start, but it doesn't lead to everlasting happiness. You have to keep struggling over and over and over and over again in order to enjoy this happiness and bliss. It's all very temporary, and it lasts for perhaps a lifetime, and perhaps you get some nice good merits from living a good life, and you enjoy the fruits of that for a while, and then you have to start all over again. So it's kind of this endless cycle. So then he says you find the right path in the Vedanta, and what he's referring to here, of course, is the Upanishadic parts of the Vedas, where the philosophical parts are given and outlines how one realizes that their true self is one with Brahman, that Atman and Brahman are one. And so this is what he's referring to. And of course, this means that you're going to look for that eternal bliss and peace inside yourself. You no longer need to do rites and rituals to have things in the world. You're going to meditate and pray and contemplate the truth of your own self. He finds out the whole universe around him to be made up of two sorts of things, friendly and unfriendly. There are certain friendly things in the world and many more unfriendly things. In the presence of a friend, we hide nothing. We reveal to him all the secrets of our hearts, which expand at his very sight. We reveal our true selves to him. But when an enemy comes, we hide our true selves before him. We shrink back in fear and wish him a speedy departure and feel relieved when he leaves us. Sugar is friendly to the tongue, and so the tongue will expand at its very sight and receive it with all eagerness, as if a friend has come after a long absence, and through the experience is revealed the real nature of the self, which is ever blissful. But the tongue gets contracted and wants to reject the quinine as if an unfriendly man has come. Thus, at that time, the false self, which is never blissful, comes out, and the man feels miserable. Kind of reminds you of commercials that you see, right? In the commercials, they always show people smiling and laughing and having this great time because they're eating at a certain restaurant, or they've bought a certain product at the grocery store, or they've used a new appliance or something, and it just makes them so happy. That's the source of bliss, isn't it? Just to use a new cutting machine on the kitchen or something. So commercials know how to feed into these lower desires of the self in order to make us think that we're going to find bliss and happiness in the latest deodorant or the latest fancy car or something of that nature. Or perhaps it's the softness of the toilet tissue or something of that nature. It's just going to be blissful. We have seen before that the real man is Satchidananda, or existence, knowledge, absolute bliss. If so, whence comes all sorts of miseries to him? There is no trace of misery in his true nature. It comes from outside his nature. It comes from something which is unfriendly to him. He is spirit, and out of spirit comes bliss. That which is not spirit is matter. So out of matter comes all miseries. Hence, this is the conclusion, that bliss is to be found only inside ourselves. Try to realize it if you want to get rid of all fear. The Upanishads also tells the same thing. The highest bliss, Brahmananda, is beyond the reach of the word and mind. He who realizes it does not fear anymore. Realize your true self and be free forever, free from the hand of ignorance, free from all miseries, free from all sorts of fears, even free from the fear of death. And of course, that comes from realizing that you're not the body and the mind. When you think that you're the body and the mind, then of course you fear death because you've identified with something that is temporary. If you can identify with your true self, that is the essence of Satchidananda, then the fear of death leaves you. Mind has a natural tendency to go outside and search after happiness and knowledge, so it is in constant touch with the world. But the world, too, is inadequate to help you realize that infinite bliss, for it is beyond the province of mind even. You have therefore to transcend the mind in order to realize Brahmananda. You must not allow the mind to lord over you. You must bring it under your perfect control. The path lies over the subjugated mind, and when this path has been pointed out, the path lies over the subjugated mind, and when this path was pointed out to Arjuna, that noble and heroic prince had to confess his own weakness and say, "Mind is restless, unruly, strong, difficult to manage. I think it is as difficult to control as the wind." In reply to this complaint, Sri Krishna said that the mind is uncontrollable and restless, is beyond all doubt. But by practice and by renunciation of sensual enjoyments, you can have mastery over it. So you see, Sri Krishna did not preach any easier method to realize the highest self. Quote, "There is no other path leading to salvation," unquote, says the Upanishads. You must constantly practice to concentrate your mind. Never give up in despair. The more you will be able to minimize your attachment for sensual enjoyments, the more it will be possible for you to concentrate your mind. So really any activity that helps you to concentrate the mind and to delay gratification will be part of the training of our minds. So just as we're growing up, we have to learn that, as Swami Swahananda used to say, that you have to avoid, when you're a little kid, your parents tell you can't jump on the food at the table first. You have to allow other people to be served first. You can't just expect that you can grab whatever you need at the beginning, but you have to be polite. And so these teachings of etiquette and politeness and morality and so forth are all really beginning steps in our training to try to remember to be unselfish. Remember that Vivekananda said that unselfishness is the test of religion. And so rather than doing something that you think you'd want to do that would be enjoyable, you make sure that you're doing all your duties to other people that are around you. And instead of thinking that you need to get everything first, you wait patiently for other people to allow them to have what they need first. And in school, you have to put other things aside in order to concentrate your mind on a particular subject. And you have to learn how to concentrate on that subject when you're supposed to concentrate on that subject. And then take your mind off of that subject and put it on the next subject. And so all of this is very good training for the mind, that we need to learn to keep the mind concentrated on whatever it is we're doing. So same thing in our work. We have various things we have to do in life, and so we want to keep our mind focused on the job at hand. That's the secret of karma yoga, is to be able to concentrate the mind on the task at hand and clear your mind of all other kinds of thoughts. And then once that's done, you detach yourself from the results and you go on to the next task. So this is all training to concentrate the mind, so that when you sit to meditate, your mind is already used to concentrating on just one thing. And so it makes it much easier for you to sit in meditation and focus on your japam, or focus on your chosen ideal, or whatever type of meditation you happen to be doing. As it is impossible to fill up a leaky jar with water, even if you keep it under a water pipe for hours and hours together, so it is impossible to control the mind if you allow it to escape every now and then, and through the openings of your senses. If you allow your mind to drink unduly of the liquor of sensual enjoyments, how can you ever expect to make it calm and sober? Once a great teacher taught his disciples in this way: How can a bad world come into existence out of God who is absolutely good? What you regard as bad is not really so, only you do not know the use of it. The knife is not a bad thing, but if you hold it in the wrong side, you will cut your fingers, as babies do. We are apt to think that lust, anger, greed, and the idea of my and mine, pride and jealousy are enemies of man. They are not so, if you know how to use them. Instead of directing these things, the so-called evil propensities, towards the ephemeral things of the world, direct them towards God, and you will achieve the great victory of realizing Him with the help of one of these. When any one of these ardent passions is directed towards God, is all paramount in your mind, all other propensities absolutely disappear from it, and nothing but God remains there. If one loves God intensely, nothing but God can ever be there in one's mind. He who is extremely angry with God must have him always on his mind, as it was the case with Sisupala. He was intensely greedy for food. Let him taste the nectar of wisdom, and the food by taking which he will hunger no more. If the idea of my and mine is the cause of your bondage here, regard God as your own, and thus be free from the bondage once for all. Be truly proud that you are the Son of God, and then you will be able to exalt yourself far above the potentates of the world, nay, even above all the celestial beings who are not fully free from and are still partially slaves to the enjoyments of the senses. And so, as I mentioned last time, this is what I would call the martial arts of spiritual life. You take what is your opponent's strength in a martial art, you use your opponent's strength for your advantage. That's the whole idea behind, say, judo or aikido or any of those martial arts. And so similarly, in our spiritual life, we look at the things that are normally thought of as distractions to our spiritual life and give them a twist. Give them a twist so that they help you in your spiritual practice. Now, of course, any one of these can be incorrectly done too. So if you think of yourself as that God is your own and it's nobody else's, then you might become intensely partial to your particular religious path and start to see criticisms of everybody else's path and that sort of thing. And so you have to avoid some of the extremes. But as long as you can keep the goal in mind that this is part of your spiritual practice and is not to be compared with anybody else's spiritual practice, then you will be on firm ground. So, and again, whatever it is you like to do. So suppose you like to cook. Well, then make sure that you're offering that food to the Lord before you eat it. And so you're cooking for your chosen ideal. And you ask your chosen ideal to bless and partake of your food, its essence, and then you can partake of it. Similarly, if you if you like music, if either perform or create music, then you do it for a spiritual reason. If you like art, then create art for a spiritual reason. So no matter what it is you're doing, you can turn that into something that you can do for the love of your chosen ideal. And of course, that's sort of a combination of bhakti yoga and karma yoga. And now he goes on, you know the infinitely loving nature of God. He is infinitely kind towards all his children. So you see, this is the important thing. Even though you're directing these ideas of my and mine, that God loves me and that sort of thing, you have to remember that God's loving nature is infinite and that he loves all beings. He loves all equally. There is no partiality in his love, for infinite love cannot be divided. He is always ready to help everyone who wants his help. Sanaka, Narada, Sukha, Prahlada, Dhruva, etc., are all much his children as you are. They have been able to realize God. Why should you not also be able to realize him? They were able to conquer their minds. Why should you not also be able to do the same? This sort of jealousy or emulation is not bad. Rather, it helps you to attain salvation. Valmiki was a highwayman, and how could he subjugate his mind? Are you not far better than Valmiki before he came to be a sage? You have seen that the highest ideal can be realized by conquering the outgoing mind, and that you can be affected very easily when you clearly understand the littleness of sensual enjoyments and the infinite nature of spiritual bliss. Then it will not be difficult for your ever-ambitious mind to give up the little and aspire for the great, the infinite Lord of the whole universe, the abode of all life, all wisdom, and all blissfulness. Then alone will all your struggles end, for then alone will all your ideals be realized. Thus we find that even the Vedas are to be renounced and the Vedanta to be taken up by those who want to save themselves from all limitations. So there again, he's referring to the various ritualistic portions of the Vedas that deal with getting things in the world, as opposed to the Upanishadic portions, which concentrate on spiritual development. Thus we find that even the Vedantas are to be renounced, and the Vedanta to be taken up by those who want to save themselves from all limitations. That is why Sri Krishna finds fault with the Vedas, and teaches Arjuna accordingly. Quote, "The Vedas deal with the three limited forms of matter, but you, Arjuna, should go beyond all limitations," unquote. Indeed, the threefold manifestations of matter, the calm and transparent sattvika, the ever-active and bound rajasika, and the opaque and inert tamasika, are all limited, and hence he who wants to go beyond all limitations must give up the teachings of that science which teaches us how to deal with persons, places, or things which are limited. Thus, we have seen that renunciation is the natural tendency of all living beings throughout the universe. The mind of every individual is ever ambitious. It is ignorance that confines a man to pleasures that are limited, making him regard them as the highest. But in the daylight of wisdom, when the darkness of ignorance entirely disappears, the man is to know the finite as finite and the infinite as infinite. Such a man can never remain tied to the finite. He will naturally renounce the little in order to realize the vast and infinite life, wisdom, and bliss. Man is a lover of beauty, and so he will naturally love God, who is infinitely beautiful. He is the lover of power, and who is more powerful than God? Thus, when man knows God to be the highest, the best, the most beautiful, the most powerful, the wisest, the most loving, the most nearly related, more than father, mother, children, wife, relatives, and friends, etc., it is but natural for him to renounce everything for the sake of the Lord. So you have to think of the Lord that way, that he is the ultimate, the penultimate of all things. So no matter what quality you can think of, God represents the penultimate manifestation of that particular quality, which is something that you are looking for. So whether you're looking for greatness or beauty or love or relationship, God is the penultimate source of all of those things. So if you find yourself going after one of those things, remind yourself of where the ultimate source of all of those things is, and go for that. And it is also a fact that whenever there is any conscious movement either in the animal or in the vegetable kingdom, it is a struggle to realize the highest ideal of eternal life, infinite wisdom and absolute bliss, or in other words, Satchidananda, or God. Until that is realized, this struggle will be going on. Sometimes a man may imagine himself to be contented and peaceful, but he mistakes laziness for contentment and peacefulness. Perfect peace and bliss can only be had in God, who is always ready to accept you as his own child when you recognize in him your true Father. And that reminds me of people that want to go on a vacation just to get away from it all. They're so tired of the hustle and bustle, and so they want to go on a vacation. And as soon as they go out on a vacation, they look for things to do. Well, isn't there a tour we can take? Well, let's go for a big outing. Well, let's go find some sort of nightlife in this place, all right? So we brought our boom box, so we're going to play loud music out in the country where you went to be peaceful and quiet. So it seems like even though we think we want a nice, peaceful vacation, oftentimes people end up being more tired when they get home from a vacation than when they went out in the first place. Because it seems that our nature is our senses are constantly trying to tell us that we have to do all these things, whereas the inner wisdom is to go within. All right, the next chapter is called Regions, Higher and Lower. High above us there is the zenith, which we regard as the highest point in the heaven, and down below us there is the nadir, which we regard as the lowermost point. But what we regard as zenith, the antipoles regard as nadir. That is, what we regard as the highest point in space, the Americans regard as the lowest. So we find that there is no point in space which can be definitely named as the highest or the lowest. Seems like he should have used something in the southern hemisphere. But anyway, east and west, north and south, got the same kind of dichotomy. But is there any point which humanity as a whole may regard as the lowest? And if so, what is that point? We say it must be the center of the earth, as it is regarded to be such by all humanity. Any point other than the center is more distant from the one and less distant from the other side of the globe. And so, although every point in it is in constant motion on account of its ceaseless revolutions around the sun, as regards humanity, we may regard the center to be a fixed point equidistant from all points on the surface of the earth. We are more concentrated with humanity than with any other thing. We are more concerned with humanity than any other thing in the universe, as in the welfare and progress of humanity, our own welfare and progress are ensured. Thus, the proper study for man is man himself. After we have found out a fixed point here, the other points are not hard to find. A point which is more distant from it than another should be regarded as higher than it. Thus, lowermost point, the center of the earth, is also the center of earthly attraction or gravitation. Every particle of the earth gravitates or tends towards it. This unseen and irresistible force, seated there, unceasingly exerts its powers on all sides and keeps everything in its place. Every dull, dead matter body on the surface of the globe has a tendency to go or fall towards it, and thus man, who is neither a soul nor a dead body, but a combination of these two, has also a tendency to go or fall towards it, and he can only keep his body from falling down by means of the opposite force, or self-exertion, or soul force. Whenever this soul force in him is overpowered by the earth force, as when he has an irresistible desire to sleep, or when he has fallen a victim to any kind of impairing disease, he cannot hold erect his body, which therefore falls down either on a bed or on the bare ground. Let him call this force of gravity or earth force as material force, and the soul force as spiritual force. So he's just drawing kind of an analogy or metaphor here that the gravitational force pulls us down and our soul force tries to keep us elevated. And this is just a rough metaphor. And of course, now we know that the universe is full of things that have gravitational attraction much greater than the Earth, but we're just so close to the Earth that they don't account for much for us here. But the sun, of course, its gravitational force is much greater. There are black holes where the gravitational force is much greater, but they're all more distant. So, but anyway, we'll just take this as an analogy so that he can go on with his arguments here. The color of matter at rest is like darkness. It is, in fact, that rest is the natural state of a living being, and restlessness the unnatural state. For a thing is restless only to find rest. Then we can consider matter also to be in its natural condition when it is at rest, and when it is unnatural condition when it is in high motion. We learn from almost all the scriptures of the world that before creation there was darkness everywhere. The undisturbed and slumbering particles of matter were perfectly resting, as it were, at the time, after having gone through the arduous process of a previous creation or manifestation, when the all-powerful will of the Lord brought about disturbance among them. Heat and light came into existence on account of the very high motion that produced, and out of the all-devouring darkness of ignorance, the light of knowledge came forth, illumining a portion of the limitless void. The light that came out of darkness, following the all-powerful will of the Lord, cannot be dull, dead, and unconscious, as it came into existence out of the conscious will. And as the cause always enters into the effect, it was the light of knowledge, the conscious and living light. Thus we see that matter, darkness, ignorance, weakness, and misery are inseparably connected with one another, just as spirit, light, knowledge, power, and bliss are in turn connected. So he's, again, bringing this analogy that this consciousness of what brings the universe really into existence out of a dull, dark void. And of course, the mythologies of creation very frequently bring this kind of metaphor into existence, whether it's an Eastern religion or a Western religion. They start out with an unfathomable void, and you can get Egyptian mythologies and Iranian mythologies and Germanic mythologies, and they all have the same kind of idea that there's some sort of unfathomable darkness or unfathomable ocean of undifferentiatedness, and then by the will of some being of consciousness, it decides that it wants to know itself, and so it brings light into the world and separates the darkness from the light, separates the waters from the earth, separates the heavens from the earth. All sorts of dichotomies are brought into these creation mythologies to illustrate this. And so we have to remember that the light of consciousness is, in some sense, in this creation. But this creation also has a deceptive nature to it. It's a product of Maya, and so we tend to forget that this consciousness exists inside this world. All right, let's see where he's going to take this particular analogy. The whole earth rotates around its center, but the center, having no such rotatory motion, may be regarded as fixed and motionless in respect to humanity, although it has its orbital motion in respect to the universe. Light may paint the surface of every material body with various colors, as violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red, But behind the surface, every material body is perfectly dark in the case of the opaque and partially in the case of the transparent and translucent bodies. Hence, the color of matter at rest being dark, the central portion of the earth, which has the least motion in it, must be in utter darkness, or tamas. I think he's going to get into the idea of how you tend to think of hells as being down and heavens as being up. Well, let's see where he takes us. We have already seen that man is a combination of matter and spirit. When matter predominates in him, darkness, ignorance, weakness, and misery naturally mark him as their own. His tendencies become tamasic, or materialistic. He almost entirely forgets his spiritual nature and identifies himself with his body. All his enjoyments come to him only through his body. With the disturbance of this body, he feels disturbed, and when it is at rest, he feels himself at rest. In fact, he worships no other god than his body. With the body, he feels himself to have been born. With its life, he feels himself to live, and with its death, he expects to die or be no more. He loves whatever is material and formful, and does not even believe in the existence of what is immaterial, formless, or spiritual. He regards his soul to be one of the various manifestations of matter. So, of course, again, this is the sort of beginning stages that living beings go through, where they're totally identified with their matter nature. And then one step away from that would be identifying with their mental nature. So that's a step in the right direction, reaching up from the more tamasic nature of totally being engrossed in a identification with matter up to a more slightly subtler realm, the mental realm. And then eventually we have to use the mental realm in order to transcend the mental realm and go beyond both the physical and the mental identification to our spiritual identification. Hence he dotes upon all earthly enjoyments and regards the world as the only reality, and this life to be his all in all. He therefore wants to enjoy it at any cost, as long as he is allowed to have it. He loves his father, mother, wife, children, relatives, friends, and neighbors because they make him happy. All his hopes, aspirations, and ambitions are confined to this world and this life alone. Laziness and sleep being the two ideals, he does not want to earn his bread by honest labor, and hence turns out to be a thief. Being absolutely selfish, he perpetuates all sorts of evil deeds to satisfy his passions, turns out to be a cutthroat and a villain, and thus leads a miserable life. So we see people of this tendency where they just feel that they somehow deserve all of these things that they want, and they want to be as lazy as possible and unmotivated as possible, and yet still have everything. And so they just expect things to come to them, and will cheat and lie and steal in order to get things as easily as possible. Like an owl, he loves darkness, and hence, after his death, he is taken to the abode of darkness, otherwise known as hell, situated in a portion of the region around the center of the earth, the Patalaloka, to suffer all sorts of miseries, till he is properly punished for all his past misdeeds, when he is again reborn in this world. However tamasika a man may be, his inner nature being blissful, he cannot like misery and so on. And so he gradually hates that sort of life which brings misery to him. When he finds that weakness, the offspring of ignorance, makes him depend upon everything and reduces him to misery, he wants to be independent. He begins to rebel against nature around him, which refuses to give him all that will make him happy. Thus, by constant struggle, he becomes stronger and stronger. His old tamasic or lazy nature he gives up. The spirit in him tries to assert itself and does not want to be subservient to matter. A regular fight goes on between the spiritual and the material in him, which goes by the name of activity. He likes to earn his bread by honest labor and hates to be mean and cringing. He wages an incessant war against ignorance, knowing that knowledge is power. So you see, this is the next stage where people want to live a dharmic life. So this is why we have all these rules of morality and rules of dharmic living in order to live a more spiritual life. It's a step out of this tamasic, evil type of existence that would come naturally to one who does not have any inkling towards the spiritual. And so we learn to be honest. We learn to be loving of other people. We learn to contribute our fair share and to try to increase our own knowledge and our own skills and to be as successful in life as possible. And as he was indicating earlier, much of the earlier parts of the Vedas are kind of towards that end, so that you can live a good life. But this is rising us from the tamasika to the rajasika, so the active nature. And so it's a step above the lowest nature, but it needs to lead us on to the higher nature. So he goes on here and he says, he wages an incessant war against ignorance, knowing that knowledge is power. The mysterious world is before him. He wants to unravel its mystery. He wants to be happy and is able to make himself so by forcing nature to yield him whatever he wants. This partial success in his warfare with nature makes him very hopeful of a complete victory over her in the future, and he struggles on right manfully. He loves to live and regards his life here as all in all. Earthly enjoyments, honors, and glories become the ideal of his life, and thus he identifies himself with his body. His materialistic tendencies remain intact, but he becomes rajasika, or passionately attached to worldly enjoyments, and as such begins to be always active to get them. He has no leisure to put to himself such a question as, who am I? Am I one with my body? Am I to live after death? But when, by constant activity and labor, he is able to earn enough money to make himself perfectly comfortable, when he no longer feels the pinchings of want, and when he can afford to give up labor and enjoy rest, his constant active mind will not remain satisfied with the enjoyments of the flesh, and the questions will naturally come to him. Who am I? Am I one with the body? If I am one with it, I will have to die. But I do not want to die. How then am I to live forever? How can I avoid death? How can I make myself absolutely free from fear of death and various miseries, and so on? He has now got leisure enough to think upon such problems as a result of his constant cognition. And of course, we see rather ill-directed tendencies. We can get facelifts so we can look younger, even though we aren't younger. We can do all sorts of types of exercise or special diets in order to have a healthier lifestyle. And if you think of that as keeping the temple in good shape, the temple of the Atman, then that can have a benefit. After all, and meditation is not an easy task, and it takes a strong body and mind to achieve it. But unfortunately, most of the time, these things are directed towards the materialistic end of things, just when someone has not given up this identity with the body as much as it needs to. But thinking on these problems And as a result of constant cognition, he ultimately finds out their solution, helped by the scriptures. He has now become sattvika. He does not like to live or remain in darkness anymore. He wants light, more light, and hence nothing but the higher regions, which are ever illumined with the lights of myriads of heavenly bodies. But the regions which are illumined with the lights of myriads of heavenly bodies, can they ever satisfy him? He does not like to live on earth where light and darkness are divided in the course of a year. The little pleasures of the flesh do not satisfy him anymore. He wants more substantial, more permanent sorts of pleasures. His ideas get more and more expanded. He finds that he has no home on the earth, and so he longs to go to higher regions where the heavens are located, whither he is taken up at last by his natural tendencies. So the name of the chapter here, regions higher and lower. So first, the tamasika tendencies led to those lower regions, which were so horrible that the tendencies have to be manifested to go to higher and higher regions. And of course, this leads to the idea of trying to reach for some sort of heavenly realm where enjoyments are more permanent. But as he will go on in the next few pages, that even these are not permanent. Heavens are not permanent. They're also temporary. So it's, again, just a stepping stone in the process of our evolution. We have to kind of go through this process. First, we discover that just expecting material enjoyments and getting them adharmically doesn't work. That leads to greater darkness. So then we dharmically try to adhere to a better life and better aspirations, and we become more rajasic, and that leads to a more sattvic outlet where we want to have more permanent enjoyments leading to aspirations for heavens. And in the last part of the section here, he will go on to convince us that even heavens are temporary, and we have to raise our aspirations to the ultimate source of joy, Satchidananda, or the eternal bliss and happiness. All right, so we will have to wait a couple weeks for that, because next week we have our crystal bowl meditation session for the month. We have a special guest speaker the last Friday of the month. That's why we're not doing the crystal bowl meditation that week, and that pushes the vigil up a week, so we're not having it that week because we're in the library. So next week will be our crystal bowl meditation. The week after that we'll have our class in the library, and the week after that we have Swami Atmavidyananda as a guest speaker here. He was a monk here for many years. He lived mostly at the Trabuco Center and then started the San Diego Center, and then he was in Ridgely Manor for a while. Then he was at the Houston Center for a while, and now he's the head of the Gretz Center in France. So he's been around to a lot of different centers. He spent a long time in India editing the complete works of Vivekananda, and so he has a large, vast experience from many, many different centers. And it'll be a great joy to see him again and to hear him. So be sure you come to that last Friday of the month to hear his talk. So we'll close with a chant, and we'll see you again next week for the crystal bowl meditation. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see, filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is, from Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace. And a couple of other announcements. Ramnam will be tomorrow. Sunday, Swami Sarvadeva will be giving the lecture, and then also the retreat at the Vivekananda House. And we somehow managed to leave the Memorial Day retreat off the bulletin, so we're going to add that to the bulletin. On Memorial Day, we always have a retreat where we gather in groups really all over the country, and different centers are assigned different parts of the complete works of Swami Vivekananda to read. And so we'll be doing that on Memorial Day. So we've got lots of nice activities coming forward. So be sure to put those all on your calendar. All right.